Hello fellow travelers. This is Krotny, welcoming you all back to the logbook of a simple lindworm traveler. Today we are finally going to be taking a look at the last quote-unquote legacy unit that I have not covered. That is a unit that the northern tribes have had access to pretty much from the beginning of the Warcrow game, but I haven't gotten around to talking about Ahlwardt yet, so this time it's all about the Ice Bear. Let's go. So who is Ahlwardt Ice Bear? Ahlwardt is the Jarl, that is the leader, overlord of the main faction of Varanks in the Warcrow story. He is the other half of the duo that's responsible for the war alliance between the Varanks and the Orcs, and as I understand, it was actually Ahlwardt's daughter who was instrumental in making the first things happen as it came to this alliance. In a way, she was the one that was stranded in a snowstorm, if I remember correctly, and Aalborg saved her, and she would later start to run away from her people in order to spend time with the orcs, and this was a first step along the way that finally led to the War Alliance as we understand it today in the world of Warcrow. Ahlwardt is a legendary character among the Varanks in that he is not only a respected leader and a charismatic person, but he's also the greatest among the skin changers, since he's not only able to pretty much fully transform into his totem animal, the ice bear, but he's also a rare skin changer in that he can maintain control over his actions even in the beast form. The other skin changers, even if they don't fully transform, tend to become so feral and animalistic that they are a double-edged sword for the commander fielding them. But Ahlwardt, despite being able to become a towering man-bear who rips everything apart in his way, is still able to keep his rationality, and that makes him the doubly dangerous foe to face on the field of battle. There's actually not all that much written about Ahlwardt in the source book. There are few passages where he's guiding younger Varanks, and some texts are written from the point of view of, for example, the dwarves of Mount Haven interacting with him, but we don't get all that much about Ahlwardt the person, but maybe we are going to be getting some more going forward. Here's the card for Ahlwardt Ice Bear. Unfortunately, Corvus Belli still has not released PDFs of many of the cards that we have access to so far, but happily there's a fan-made Warcrow army builder out there that I was able to lift this image from. It's of higher quality than anything I could have photographed with my phone, so really kudos to people willing to upkeep that. I think Dick Balang is the person that has been at least fronting this project in the Discord. So thank you for your service to the community, friend. Keep up the good work. Back to the matter at hand, let's talk about Ahlwardt's basic stats then. As we can see, Ahlwardt costs a whopping 60 points, and he is not only the most expensive Northern Tribes model released to date, but he's also as a whole the most expensive unit that we have access to, and this is going to be a big theme going forward. I don't think anyone is arguing that Ahlwardt isn't great a model in and of himself, but we have to remember that if and when you're choosing to field the legendary skin changer, you are paying an extremely hefty a price for him, and then you will be able to, or you will need to be able to make him work for the points that he is getting. Ahlwardt isn't as strategically minded, it seems, as his orcish counterpart Aalborg, since he only has access to 2 command tokens. 2 command tokens is decent enough, don't get me wrong, and I have sung the praises of the box standard Wrath main partly due to the fact that he does bring 2 command tokens at half price, I have to admit, but still. But the thing with Ahlwardt's command tokens is that even though they may end up instrumental in securing you the additional dice for the initiative roll before the game actually starts, Ahlwardt has a powerful command skill of his own that he will probably want to be spending those command tokens on, so you really can't expect him to be handing those command tokens out for allied models to use unless you are A, not making the best use of Ahlwardt, or B, the situation with some other character is so dire that you are willing to forego potential use of Ahlwardt's amazing personal command skill to grant that command token to someone else. At move 4-3 and 10 stride charge distance, Ahlwardt is as fast as most of the Varank units. I think the only units that don't have this movement so far is the Hersir with their second movement value of 2 and the Polar Bear Totem choosing skin changes that are 3, 3 and 9 with their movement. But this decent enough movement should allow Ahlwardt to traverse the battlefield as he pleases, getting to the places where he needs to be rather swiftly. And the 10 stride charge should mean that he has the opportunity to engage most non-elven, non-cavalry units before they have a chance to jump on him, so that's really nice. At 5 wounds, Ahlwardt has the characteristic high wounds total of the Northern Tribes high command characters, so he's going to be really difficult to bring down even before we factor in things like elite and a decent defense roll that we are going to be seeing going forward, and his ability to heal himself. At 2 orange willpower and morale of 3, Ahlwardt Ice Bear is tied for the quote-unquote best psychological performance characteristics of any models that we have access to so far. But we do have to take note that Ahlwardt is actually lacking the fearless keyword, which I find somewhat strange. And this does mean that while he isn't exactly vulnerable to willpower targeting abilities, and elite does actually help out with your willpower rolls, the problem comes with tests where you need to pass several rolls in a row effectively. So something like intimidating 2 might occasionally prove difficult for Ahlwardt, and he's crucially not immune to being frightened, which can allow your opponents to leverage their psychological attacks against him more efficiently. At morale of 3, Ahlwardt has plenty of stress that he can engage with, so that he can empower his attacks or keep activating over and over again during a round, which is once again facilitated by his powerful command ability that we are going to be talking about more in detail later. Ahlwardt is a high command character, a named character, and he has availability of 1, so that's pretty box standard stuff. Only 1 ice bear per list. Even if you were dreaming of a scenario where you would be running a team of these guys, no, not in this game mode at least. Ahlwardt is obviously a Varank character, but this has actually little gameplay effect since there are very limited number of things that actually help out Varanks in any way, and his pool of available units that he can join is restricted to just a single named unit. Actually, if we want to get really technical about this, the fact that Ahlwardt is a Varank character is actually a small detriment, since Dragoslav, Drago the Anvil, has a Bloodlust Varank ability that he can leverage against Ice Bear. But yeah, sure, whatever, who cares, right? As a leader of the skin changers, Ahlwardt can join only a unit of skin changers, but crucially, this unit has to pick the totem of the polar bear in order for this attachment to be possible. This is quite fluffy from the backstory point of view. The greatest ice bear of all joining a unit of polar bear skin changers sounds pretty believable enough. But what this does do is the fact that if you choose to make this combination, you cannot have them scout onto the battlefield, which would be a pretty cool thing for Ahlwardt to be able to do. And also you are chaining Ahlwardt to a 3-3 movement, 9 stride charging unit, so he's actually going to be a tad slower if he's leading a unit of skin changers. As to the rest of Ahlwardt's keywords, he's elite, which is extremely important. We have now gotten an FAQ entry on what characteristics, what roles does the elite affect. So in Ahlwardt's case, he's going to be able to leverage elite on his attack and defense and willpower rolls. Unfortunately, this spell has been carved out of things that are compatible with elite. So even though Ahlwardt has a blue and a black dice dispel, he's not able to convert the hollow blocks into solid ones. I actually haven't done a great deal of research on what I'm about to say, but my hunch is that you cannot combine two same keywords to an increased effect. So I would think that even if you include a tattooist whose breathe in the spirit of the totem ability grants Varank units a blue dice dispel, I don't think that ability is going to increase Ahlwardt's dispel attribute. But I'm open to being wrong on this case as in many others. Ahlwardt also has access to Berserker Rage. Unfortunately, not as powerful a version as the Tattoo of Sturkriege that we see on the Hersir, but still decent enough in that Ahlwardt has a large pool of wounds that he can use as a resource to fuel the Berserker Rage, and also he is capable of regenerating wounds suffered in this way or another, as we are about to witness. Berserker Rage can not only be used when you are rolling for your attack or your defense, but it can also be used to add symbols to your willpower roll. And this can be important if you are subject to a willpower roll that you are failing and it's absolutely necessary for you to pass. You can suffer a wound on Ahlwardt in order to add a success to your result, and that can get you over the hump and help him pass the test. Unfortunately, in some cases with the new science units, we are seeing abilities that for example, target frightened units and force them to demoralize and flee automatically without a roll. And in instances like this, not even the double orange elite willpower and berserker rage is going to save you. So keep an eye out for situations like this. Then again, if you are suffering from frightened on Ahlwardt and he's close to full on stress and you are afraid of such an attack coming in, obviously you can try and engineer a situation where you go overboard on your stress, are forced to make a willpower roll, and even if you fail despite your elite, maybe due to the reroll caused by the set frightened state, you can then suffer a wound via berserker rage and pass the test and get rid of the frightened that way. Obviously, this would lead into a situation where Ahlwardt would be full on stress after and would be unable to activate, so you will need to consider really carefully whether trying something like this is going to be worthwhile or not. Lastly, Ahlwardt benefits from a modest conquest value of 1. This is something that we see on many characters that seem to be quote-unquote intended to be run solo, or at least CB is making them more enticing to run as solo models with the fact that they are giving at least some conquest value. But we do have to remember that at conquest value 1, Ahlwardt is only going to be able to wrestle objectives out of enemy hands if there is no conquest value present there, so all enemies are conquest value 0, or in the case that you are tying the conquest and the defending enemy has the tiebreaker by being there first. These are the types of situations where conquest 1 is going to come into play. Other than that, it's not going to be terribly impactful, I'm afraid. Next up, since we have been talking about keywords, list construction, and the backstory of Ahlwardt already, in a small way, let's talk about War Alliance. So War Alliance is one of the key reasons you would want to bring Ahlwardt. There are only 2 models currently in the game that give you access to this ability, the other one being Aalborg. So we are talking about expensive, high opportunity cost, high command options that you have to field one of the 2 if you want to access this ability. But the ability itself is really powerful if you are able and willing to make good use out of it. War Alliance allows Varank characters to join Orc units and vice versa, and how this effectively works for the uninitiated is that if, for example, we have a Varank character like the Hersir who has the keyword join infantry Varank, with War Alliance that changes to also, or they also gain join infantry orc. So the Hersir can't join the future Vark Rider unit because they are going to be Orc Cavalry, but they can join Orc Infantry units, and vice versa. There are some pretty decent Orc characters to be added to Varank units also if you want to go down that route. We more or less have now the full picture on what these different kinds of combinations can be with the recent release of the Varank support characters, and you very much have to ask yourself the question, am I going to be fielding Ahlwardt or, for that matter, Aalborg because I want to field the model itself and I'm going to make good use of them? If yes, good, now you have access to War Alliance and you may or may not make use of it as you feel suits you. Or if there are some killer combinations that combine Varank units and or characters or vice versa, then you have to pick one of these models to run and accept the fact that you are quote-unquote paying to get access to War Alliance. But if you find yourself to be in a situation like I seem to find myself quite often, that I don't necessarily want or need the tactical capabilities that Ahlwardt or Aalborg offer me, and I am happy with the Varanks on Varanks and Orcs on Orcs combinations that I am creating, then War Alliance is not going to be all that impactful, and it might be worthwhile taking another high command character, or maybe, as I have been trying lately, going entirely without, and that has also been quite a success story for me. Okay, let's get to the punchy stuff next. Here we see the attack breakdown from Ahlwardt Ice Bear. As you can see, the elite fueled orange, 2 oranges, red, yellow, and an automatic success does provide Ahlwardt with a rather significant average damage output. And as you can see, I have calculated again the average output and the maximum output, and the spread between the two isn't very big. So Ahlwardt is not only going to be inflicting a lot of damage on your enemy, he's also going to be inflicting a lot of damage on your enemy very reliably. And he also has abilities that allow him to at least partially bypass things like tremendously high defense values on your opponent. The average 6, maximum 7 effective damage output breaks out as average 4, maximum 6 successes, and I have grouped both the hollow and the solid successes into the single group, since Ahlwardt has no hollow success switches, so he's going to just use elite to convert all hollows into successes. The same thing actually applies for the specials, since Ahlwardt does not have a hollow special switch, so he's going to be eliting all his hollow special symbols into specials, and then gaining access to his double special switch that allows him to inflict automatic wounds upon his enemy. This, as already I said, is a way of somewhat bypassing high enemy defense scores, but at the same time, this way of damage infliction is somewhat countered by things like, for example, the war surgeon of hegemony joining an enemy unit you're targeting, since in the war surgeon's case the enemy is going to be getting a chance to roll willpower at the switch step for the automatic wounds that you inflict, and then they will get to roll again when you're actually calculating the success-based damage, so that's something that you need to keep in mind. Ahlwardt also has a powerful push modifier that he can access to by taking a point of stress. The automatic success is always nice, and thanks to elite, the yellow dice is going to provide on average 0.6 to 5 successes to the roll, and it also must be noted that the yellow dice is extremely good at providing special symbols. It also even has a double special facing out there, so accessing the switch partially or wholly due to the yellow dice is also quite a possibility. So all in all, if everything goes right, Ahlwardt is capable of inflicting a monstrous 10 points of damage against the enemy, and that's really something that pretty much any enemy unit is going to struggle to cope with, damage mitigation and casualties wise. So if you are looking for a definite solution to a problem where brute force should be applied, Ahlwardt might just be the model for you. The defensive breakdown for Ahlwardt is a pretty short and sweet deal. He's rolling a green and a blue dice on defense, and thanks to elite, he's highly capable of producing blocks with these dice. On average, he should be getting between 1 and 2, closer to 2 blocks per roll, and there is a possibility for getting as many as 3 if Lady Luck is really smiling on you. Ahlwardt's savage nature is also depicted really nicely in this defense role, since he has a defensive switch that isn't all that defensive at all, since he's able to convert any special or thanks to elite hollow special symbols into automatic wounds against the attacker. Ahlwardt also has access to a push modifier that allows him to roll a orange dice and add an automatic success to the roll. This further increases the amount of potential damage that he's able to inflict, and actually there's quite a surprisingly high amount of maximum damage that he can effectively inflict when we combine the switch ability and the successes themselves. As you can see, I have added for the push modifier an additional potential special to the total above. Then we get to Ahlwardt's powerful command skill that I have been dancing around the whole time, and that's called Pendant of the Polar Bear Fang, and it's usable once per round at the beginning of Ahlwardt's activation. What Pendant of the Polar Bear Fang allows Ahlwardt to do is to heal up to 2 wounds from him and shed all the stress that he has gained thus far. This is an extremely powerful an ability that can allow Ahlwardt to shrug off several wounds over the course of the battle. If you are able to leverage this ability every single round, you can shrug off as many as 6 wounds and you still have access to those 5 original wounds, so that's pretty awesome. And this command skill is also one of the ways of achieving a chain activation cycle in Warcrow and in the northern tribes, in that Ahlwardt can activate potentially as many as 3 times during a round to get to that 2 stress, and then he can trigger Pendant of the Polar Bear Fang in order to nullify those 2 points of stress and then get to go potentially 3 times more. So that's pretty pretty devastating if you can get that off. Do note, however, that if and when Ahlwardt ends up full on stress, you are unable to access this ability, since it's triggered at the beginning of your activation and you are not allowed to activate a model that's full on stress. So if you are looking forward to activating Pendant of the Polar Bear Fang, you need to be able to engineer a situation where your opponent is not able to get Ahlwardt filled with stress before you have a chance to access this. So in reality, you will only ever be able to shed maximum of 2 stress with Pendant of the Polar Bear Fang, and you have to strike a balance between getting the full value out of stress mitigation and getting the full value out of healing, since it may be the case that you can't get both always at the same time, and then you have to prioritize which is more important in whatever situation. Ahlwardt also has a passive skill called Unbeatable, and it allows Ahlwardt to not get pushed back after losing a round of combat without suffering any morale effects, EA stress. This is something that the Wise main grants any unit that they are joining as a part of their set of abilities, but the ability is, I feel, way more important and impactful in the Wise main's case, since you are then talking about a unit that has usually several points of conquest value behind it, and Ahlwardt having only a single point of conquest on him is going to be pretty easy to outconquest anyway. So standing your ground near to an objective and stopping your opponent from pushing you out of contention isn't going to be all that impactful. Then again, if you are able to able to facilitate or generate a situation where Ahlwardt is standing between the enemy unit looking to engage you and the objective that they are trying to get to, then Ahlwardt can stop them cold, since there is no possibility of the enemy attacking, winning Ahlwardt and then pushing him back and following into the capture radius of an objective. So there are ways of making this ability work for you scenario play wise, and there's also the other tactical implementation that I have been using sometimes, that is an enemy unit engaging you, trying to push you back, but you denying this push, which means that the enemy is now at the end of the activation still engaged in combat, and if you are able to counter attack with something, then the enemy is going to be suffering the penalty of having to lose a dice or an automatic symbol from their roll. So that's decent enough, I guess, but it's not a core ability of Ahlwardt's. I don't think it's not the reason you're getting him anyway. Okay, then let's next talk about the attached version of Ahlwardt, keeping in mind that he can only ever join a unit of Polar Bear Totem Skin Changers, so we do have the entire picture of what the combination is going to be looking like, and we have a limited amount of possibilities regarding what can happen and what can be made use of, so we can discuss those things as we go along. Ahlwardt is an officer type character, which is really important for the skin changers, since they are only a 2-member unit. So if they are not joined by an officer type character, they will either have to lose on their performance, which is their performance drop at half casualties is rather significant, or you have to sacrifice the support unit that's accompanying them, and neither is a great option. But when Ahlwardt is joining the unit will keep fighting at its peak efficiency until you lose that last skin changer, at which point Ahlwardt will detach into a single character and continue to fight from there. Another good thing about this combination that doesn't come up later on due to the fact that we are talking about Ahlwardt's card here, not about the skin changes, is the fact that the skin changes are actually fearless. So attaching Ahlwardt to them is a way of effectively granting Ahlwardt fearless, at least as long as the team up holds. Ahlwardt does grant an additional point of conquest to the skin changers, but the problem here is that the skin changers have a conquest value of 0 by themselves. And now that we are not attaching someone like, for example, the Orc Prime Warrior to them, we are really struggling to find ways to increase that conquest value beyond 1. Yes, if you have an Orc contender somewhere nearby, their Orc commander ability can be used to increase this conquest value into 2, but even at that point we really aren't talking about a good conquest value unit, not especially when we consider that it's almost 100 points of models right there. When it comes to the leadership side of attaching Ahlwardt to the skin changers, his presence does encourage the skin changers by upgrading their orange and yellow willpower to a double orange, so that's not a huge jump up, but it's decent, I guess. And Ahlwardt effectively gives the unit an additional point of morale. I find it funny that the morale value is written as 3 here instead of +1, because it doesn't matter which one it is, because Ahlwardt can only ever join a unit of skin changers, and skin changers have naturally a morale value of 2. So why go for this way of marking this? I don't know, but anyhow, it's effectively just +1 morale. Ahlwardt also grants the unbeatable characteristic to the skin changers that he's joining, but all the same limitations as before do apply. We are talking about a weak conquest unit, so there are only going to be so many situations where unbeatable is going to come in big, but hey, those instances are bound to prop up sometimes, and then you are going to be happy that you have access to this ability. When it comes to the offensive performance boost, Ahlwardt does grant some pretty nice things to the skin changers. All in all, he's going to be granting them effective damage increase of 2, and the potential for as many as 3, and average 3, maximum 4 in the case that you are going to access Ahlwardt's push modifier offensively. Remember that the skin changers themselves don't have a innate offensive push modifier, so this is a decent addition in that sense. Ahlwardt adds a single red dice to the attack roll of the skin changers, so that's where a lot of that damage comes in, average 1, potential for 2. But he also grants the unit a hollow success switch that allows them to cancel a block from the enemy dice roll. With the Ahlwardt empowered attack roll of a full unit of skin changers being made up of 2 red, 3 orange and a yellow, there aren't all that many hollow successes to be gained there, since all of those dice except the yellow one have only a single hollow success facing on them, so you aren't going to be on average rolling a whole lot of these, but it's a pseudo elite on a unit that's going to be rolling a lot of dice, so that's nice enough, no problem there. While the red dice that Ahlwardt is bringing to the unit is incapable of rolling a hollow special, which the skin changers can naturally switch into an automatic wound, the push modifier that Ahlwardt grants the unit does give them effectively the ability to suffer a point of stress to add an automatic wound to the end result. So that's a nice thing to have against extremely high defense enemies, or in situations where you are about to go full on stress soon anyway and might as well make use of the fact that you are at full stress when making the attack. It's, I think, rather okay a gamble to take in many cases to just go overboard if that's about to happen. Due to the fact that you have already activated the unit, you are near to your full stress value, and you are then going to be gaining a stress at the end of the activation due to having activated again. Well, go and push for that extra performance. You are rolling 2 orange willpower dice, not to break afterwards, so the likelihood of your skin changers turning tail and running isn't all that great. Obviously, you do need to consider the tactical situation and decide whether such a maneuver is going to be worth the risk involved. When it comes to the defensive side of things, Ahlwardt adds a desperately needed automatic block symbol for the skin changers, whose main problem, I think, is the fact that they have such a lackluster defensive role, and they have very limited chance of increasing their survivability outside of using Ahlwardt and or War Alliance. The Tattooist is a great addition in that she can help them survive for longer, but more on Tattooist at a later date. As you surely remember, the skin changers have a switch ability that allows them to transform their rolled blocks into successes. But in the case of such a high value, high impact unit, I don't think that's going to be necessarily something that comes up a whole lot. But then again, if something expensive and relatively frail is engaging you, it might be worthwhile trading in this automatic block symbol for an automatic success one in order to retaliate against whatever is engaging Ahlwardt's Ice Bears. And with that, it's time to dive into the end analysis on Ahlwardt Ice Bear. I find Ahlwardt Ice Bear to be a high command brawler character par excellence. He's extremely capable of devastating entire enemy formations all by himself, and the fact that he can regenerate wounds and shed stress while doing so is going to make him a nightmare for your enemy to face. It's more or less often left to your opponent to find a way to stop him from just tearing through their formation, and the fact that you can leverage such a threat is something that can really put your opponent on a back foot, and the rest of your force can make really good use of. Obviously, the other way to look at this is that you can use the rest of your force to hunt down the things that are credible threats to Ahlwardt, and then you can let him loose, rip through the enemy formation, and watch the horrified expression on your opponent's face as Ahlwardt shatters all their hopes and dreams before them. Ahlwardt is also one of your two ways of accessing War Alliance. And while he is more expensive, 10 points, so not all that much, but a little bit more expensive than Aalborg, I do find that getting the best value out of Aalborg does require a somewhat balanced mix of Varank and Orc units so that you can gain the most out of the Warg and the Crow. But when fielding Ahlwardt, you don't have the burden of trying to make a balanced list and trying to get the most out of that command skill. You can just plop in Ahlwardt, play him as you feel suits you the best, and then you can build the rest of the list taking advantage of War Alliance without having to worry about getting both Orc and Varank type units in to the list in a balanced manner. While Ahlwardt can indeed be escorted by a retinue of skin changers whose performance is actually decently, if not downright quite well, enhanced by the presence of the greatest among their kind, and as already noted, this is a way of getting fearless to Ahlwardt. This high command character is the type of guy, or rather a bear, that you can run solo without all that much support required, and you can make full use of him. So in that way we can also consider Ahlwardt to have an option to be played as a plug and play solution in your list. Obviously, now that there is the Tattooist, for example, running about, I think those two might be a good tag team running down a flank against your enemy, since Ahlwardt can attack and engage your enemies, and if he becomes wounded and has already spent the command token on the polar bear fang pendant during that round, or he's full of stress and unable to activate, you can bring in the Tattooist and heal him from 10 strides away. That's pretty nice. So there are things like that that you can do, but you can also run Ahlwardt just as solo, and he should be doing quite fine for you. The main restriction on why you would not field Ahlwardt is the fact that he is extremely expensive. When you end up paying 60 points for your high command character, you are going to be restricting yourself on how many and what types of units you can add to your force after. And if you are wanting to splash out for some of the more exotic and powerful combinations allowed by the War Alliance after including Ahlwardt, the end result may be a list that has a rather limited number of tactical elements available to it, since all your eggs are concentrated in more or less 2 or 3 expensive baskets, and you only have a few points left over for any support stuff, which may end up leaving your list very powerful in the places where you're able to leverage that combat power, but also stretched rather thin and prone to being outmaneuvered by your opponent. So include Ice Bear if he is what doctor ordered for you, but don't get hung up on him if you feel like you can build the rest of the list to what you would like to see with him included. Just switch for something cheaper or forego a high command option entirely and see where that takes you. Okay, thank you for waiting for this one patiently. It has taken me, I don't even care to count how many months from the release of Ahlwardt to finally get to make this unit analysis, but here we are. Expect to see content about the recent FAQ and the new newer Northern Tribes units in the next few weeks. Have a great day everyone and safe travels. Goodbye for now.